The morning sun hung low over the NATO training facility, casting long shadows across the concrete yard where egos clashed like thunder. Lance Morrison, broad-shouldered and brimming with arrogance, shoved past a small woman struggling with her worn backpack. "Get out of my way, logistics," he snarled, his voice slicing through the crisp air. She stumbled but didn't fall, her old boots scraping the ground as she steadied herself with a quiet grace that spoke of hidden resilience. The other cadets erupted in laughter, their sharp jeers echoing off the barracks walls. Here was their entertainment. A woman who looked like she'd wandered in from the wrong side of the tracks, standing among the elite hopefuls of one of the world's toughest boot camps. Madison Brooks tossed her perfect blonde ponytail, her eyes gleaming with mockery. "Seriously, who let the janitor in? This isn't a soup kitchen." The group howled, pointing at the woman's faded t-shirt and scuffed boots that screamed poverty and misplacement. Olivia Mitchell, that was her name on the roster, said nothing. She simply picked up her backpack with precise, careful movements and walked toward the barracks. Her silence only fueled their ridicule, turning the yard into a circus of taunts. But in just 18 minutes, when her torn shirt would reveal what lay beneath, every single person there would realize they'd committed the gravest error of their budding military careers. The commander himself would freeze mid-sentence, his face paling as he recognized a symbol long thought erased from existence. A mark that whispered of legends and lethal secrets. If this tale of hidden identity and sweet justice has you hooked already, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories that prove the underestimated often pack the deadliest punch. Trust me, what unfolds next with Olivia will restore your faith in karma's sharp blade. Now, let's dive back into that fateful yard where destinies were about to shatter. Olivia Mitchell rolled up in a beat-up pickup truck that coughed exhaust like an old smoker, its chipped paint and mud-caked tires a far cry from the polished SUVs of her fellow cadets. She climbed out looking utterly ordinary. Wrinkled jeans, a faded windbreaker, and sneakers with holes that invited the morning dew. No one could have guessed she hailed from one of the nation's wealthiest families, raised amid private jets and gated mansions. But Olivia carried none of that world on her sleeve. No designer tags, no polished demeanor, just a plain face and clothes washed threadbare. Her backpack dangled from one stubborn strap, and her boots might as well have been salvaged from a veteran's discard pile. She stood there with hands in pockets, observing the chaotic swirl of the camp like a ghost waiting for its cue. While others strutted with youthful bravado, sizing each other up in a testosterone-fueled standoff, Olivia remained still, her brown eyes scanning without judgment. The first day was a gauntlet meant to break the weak, and Captain Harrow, the hulking instructor with a voice like gravel, paced like a predator. "You!" he barked, jabbing a finger at Olivia. "Supply crew get lost?" Snickers rippled through the ranks. Madison whispered loudly, "Diversity quota, am I right?" Olivia met his gaze calmly. "I'm a cadet, sir." Harrow waved her off with a snort. "Get in line. Don't drag us down." Olivia's pickup truck rattled to a stop at the edge of the NATO facility, its engine wheezing like it was begging for retirement. The other cadets, unloading sleek duffels from polished vehicles, barely noticed her at first. She stepped out, her faded windbreaker catching on the door handle, her jeans creased from days of wear, her sneakers, patched with duct tape, squelched in the damp grass, and her backpack sagged under the weight of its own frayed straps. To the untrained eye, she was a nobody. A clerical error in human form, misplaced among the elite. But Olivia Mitchell was no mistake. Raised in a world of private tutors and sprawling estates, she'd grown up with wealth most cadets could only dream of. Yet she'd shed that privilege like an ill-fitting skin, choosing clothes that blended into the background, a deliberate camouflage for reasons no one yet understood. The camp buzzed with the energy of youth and ambition. Cadets strutted, their crisp uniforms and polished boots screaming confidence. Lance Morrison, the golden boy with a jawline sharp enough to cut glass, swapped boasts with Derek Chen, whose buzzcut and cocky grin marked him as trouble. Madison Brooks, with her flawless ponytail and designer sunglasses, held court among a gaggle of admirers, her laughter a weapon aimed at anyone who didn't fit her mold. Olivia, by contrast, moved like a shadow, her plain brown hair tucked behind her ears, her face unreadable. She didn't join the posturing, didn't challenge the sidelong glances. She just watched, her stillness unnerving in a place where noise was currency. Captain Harrow's voice boomed across the yard, assigning bunks and barking orders. When he reached Olivia, his eyes narrowed, sizing her up like a stray dog that had wandered into his kennel. "Name?" he demanded. "Olivia Mitchell, sir," she replied, her voice steady but soft. He snorted, flipping through his clipboard. "You sure you're in the right place, Mitchell? Motor pool's that way. The cadets nearby snickered, and Madison leaned in, whispering to her friend, "Bet she's here to mop floors." Olivia didn't flinch, just shouldered her bag and headed to her assigned bunk, her boots leaving faint mud prints on the concrete. Inside the barracks, the air was thick with the scent of sweat and new gear. Cadets claimed their spaces, tossing out stories of high school glory or family legacies. Olivia found her bunk in the corner, a narrow cot under a flickering light. She set her backpack down, its single strap barely holding together, and began unpacking with methodical care. A granola bar, a worn notebook, a single photograph slipped into her pocket before anyone could see. The others ignored her, their laughter growing louder as they swapped tales of conquest. But Elena Rodriguez, a quiet cadet with sharp eyes, noticed Olivia's deliberate movements, the way her hands handled each item like it was a weapon. The first evening's mess hall was a battlefield of egos. Cadets jostled for seats, their trays clattering with the weight of military-grade portions. Olivia took a corner table, her tray sparse compared to the heaping plates around her. Derek sauntered over, his tray slamming onto her table with a deliberate thud. "Yo, lost girl," he said, loud enough for the room to hear. "This ain't a homeless shelter." The laughter was immediate, phones already out to capture the moment. Olivia paused, her fork halfway to her mouth, and met his gaze. "I'm eating," she said simply, her voice cutting through the noise like a knife. Derek smirked, undeterred, and flicked her tray, sending peas scattering across her shirt. The room roared, but Olivia just wiped the mess with a napkin, her movements slow and precise, and took another bite as if he didn't exist. Outside, the training yard loomed, a proving ground where reputations would be made or broken. Olivia stood at its edge, her hands in her pockets, watching the chaos of the first day unfold. She didn't join the shouting matches or the chest-thumping displays. She just waited, her stillness a stark contrast to the frenetic energy around her. Somewhere in that quiet, a signal only she could hear was ticking closer, and when it arrived, it would change everything. The first week at the NATO Bootcamp was a gauntlet designed to crush the weak and elevate the strong. For Olivia Mitchell, it was a daily test of endurance, not just of her body, but of her ability to withstand the relentless mockery that followed her like a shadow. The mess hall, the training yard, the barracks, every space became a stage for her tormentors to perform. Lance Morrison led the charge, his broad frame and easy charisma making him the natural ringleader. During morning drills, he jogged past her, his voice carrying over the cadence. "Thrift store, your shoes giving up yet?" he'd call, pointing at her frayed laces as the group laughed. Olivia never answered, just knelt to retie her boots with quick, precise fingers, her face a mask of calm. Physical training was brutal, a relentless cycle of push-ups, sprints, and burpees under a sun that seemed to target the unprepared. Olivia kept pace, her breathing steady despite her worn-out gear. Her shoelaces slipped loose during a sprint, and Lance seized the moment, bumping her shoulder hard enough to send her sprawling into the mud. "What's that, Mitchell? Signing up to clean floors?" he taunted as the group howled. She rose, wiped her muddy palms on her pants, and resumed running without a word, her slight limp barely noticeable. The laughter followed her, but if it stung, she didn't let it show. In the mess hall, the harassment took on a crueler edge. Olivia sat alone, her tray holding a modest portion of overcooked vegetables and dry chicken. Jenna Walsh, tall and smug, saw an opportunity. She dropped a half-eaten apple onto Olivia's tray with theatrical pity. "Can't have you starving, right? You need strength for..." "What, exactly?" The table behind her erupted, phones out to record the moment for social media glory. Olivia looked at the apple, then at Jenna, her brown eyes unflinching. "Thanks," she said, taking a slow bite. Jenna's smile faltered, expecting tears or anger. But Olivia's calm unnerved her, making the laughter sound forced. The navigation drill was a special kind of hell, a timed trek through a forested ridge with only a map and compass. Olivia moved alone, her steps quiet against the pine needles, her compass steady. Kyle Martinez, wiry and ambitious, spotted her under an oak and saw an easy target. "Hey, Dora the Explorer," he called, his group circling closer. "You lost already?" Olivia folded her map with deliberate care, but Kyle snatched it, tearing it in half and tossing the pieces into the wind. "Let's see how you do without this," he said, his friends cheering. Olivia watched the scraps flutter away, her face blank. "Hope you know your way back," she said quietly, then kept moving, her pace unchanged. Kyle's laughter faltered, but his group's jeers echoed through the trees. The equipment shed offered another chance for humiliation. Cadets lined up for gear, and the quartermaster, Gibbs, handed out vests with disdain. When Olivia stepped up, he sneered. "What's this, a hobo convention? No gear for civilians, sweetheart." He tossed her a vest 2 sizes too big, the straps dangling uselessly. Maybe she can use it as a tent, a cadet called, sparking laughter. Olivia caught the vest, her fingers tightening briefly, then slung it over her shoulder and walked out. Alone, she adjusted it with quick, practiced knots, transforming it into a perfect fit with the same precision she'd shown unpacking her bag. Night drills brought controlled chaos. With flares lighting the sky and instructors shouting contradictory orders, Olivia worked alone, securing a rope barrier with steady hands. Marcus Webb, stocky and loud, yanked her rope free, tossing it into the mud. "Oops," he grinned. "Guess you're not cut out for this, huh?" Olivia knelt, retrieved the rope and started over, her knots precise despite the dirt. Marcus kicked more grime onto her hands. "Keep trying, princess," he said. Olivia paused, her voice sharp but quiet. "You done?" Marcus blinked, thrown by her intensity, but laughed it off. Later, his own barrier came loose, costing his squad points. No one saw Olivia near it, but Elena Rodriguez, watching quietly, allowed herself a small smile. Each day, the bullying intensified, but so did the whispers about Olivia's quiet competence. Her endurance, her precision, her refusal to break under pressure began to unsettle her tormentors. Madison leaned to Lance during a break, her voice sharp. "Bet she's got some tragic backstory. Poor kid trying to prove something." Lance laughed. "She's proven she's nobody." Olivia's fingers paused on her laces, then continued tying, sealing something deep inside. The camp was a pressure cooker, and while the cadets thought they were breaking her, they were only forging the moment when everything would change. The rifle disassembly drill was the camp's great equalizer, a timed test of precision under pressure. Each cadet had 2 minutes to strip an M4 carbine, clean it, and reassemble it perfectly. Most fumbled, their fingers slipping on pins, cursing as parts scattered. Lance finished in a sloppy 143, grinning like he'd aced it. Madison scraped by at 159, her hands shaking as she snapped the last piece into place. Then Olivia stepped up. She didn't rush, her movements almost leisurely. Pin out, bolt free, parts laid out in a perfect grid like a surgeon's tools. 52 seconds. Not a single mistake. Sergeant Polk, the grizzled instructor, stared at the timer, then at her. "Mitchell," he said, his voice low. "Where'd you learn that?" Olivia wiped her hands on her pants. "Practice," she replied, eyes on the ground. The training screen replayed her performance in slow motion, every movement clean and efficient. A lieutenant whispered to Polk. Her hands didn't shake once. "That's Special Forces steady," Lance scoffed loudly. "So she can clean a gun. Doesn't mean she can fight." But Elena Rodriguez slipped Olivia a spare map during a break, whispering, "You'll need this." Olivia nodded, tucking it away, a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. Whispers spread after the drill, cadets glancing at her, trying to reconcile her vagrant appearance with her professional skill. The long-range shooting exam was make or break. 5 shots at 400 meters, all bullseyes or dismissal. The cadets fidgeted, whispering about wind speed and scopes. Madison missed 2 shots, her face pale. Lance hit 4, cursing his near miss. Olivia stepped up, her professional-grade rifle equipped with a laser range-finding scope. She didn't adjust or hesitate, just aimed, breathed, and fired. 5 perfect hits, dead center, in rapid succession. The range officer blinked at the display, then at her. "Mitchell, perfect score," he announced. A colonel observing from afar leaned forward. "Who trained her?" he murmured. His aide shook his head. "No info, sir. But that's not civilian training." During the equipment check, the officer found Olivia's rifle had a misaligned sight, subtle but enough to throw off any shooter. She'd compensated perfectly by instinct. "That's not luck," he muttered. "That's skill." The cadets' whispers grew louder, their taunts quieter. Olivia sat alone during breaks, retying her laces, ignoring the stares. Madison muttered to Lance, "She's just lucky." But the doubt in her voice betrayed her, and Olivia's silence felt heavier, like a storm gathering strength. The combat simulation was the camp's ultimate test. Hand to hand, one-on-one, no weapons, pure skill. Olivia was paired with Lance, his 6-foot frame towering over her. He grinned, fists clenched, ready to crush her. Before the whistle, he charged, slamming her against the padded wall. Her shirt tore, exposing her shoulder and back. The squad laughed, Madison recording. "She's got tattoos? Biker gang?" she jeered. But Lance froze, staring at the mark revealed. A coiled viper around a shattered skull, its fangs dripping venom. The laughter died. Phones lowered. Colonel Patterson, observing from across the yard, went pale, his hands trembling as he stepped forward. "Who gave you the right to wear that mark?" he demanded, his voice shaking with awe and fear. The yard fell silent, instructors pausing mid-task. Olivia, still pinned by Lance, met the colonel's gaze. "I didn't ask for it," she said clearly. "Ghost Viper gave it to me. I trained under him for 6 years." The words struck like lightning. Patterson snapped to a salute, his eyes wide. "No one bears that tattoo unless they're his final student," he said, voice reverent. Lance stumbled back, his face ashen. Madison's phone clattered to the ground. The name Ghost Viper was legend. A mythical trainer of a unit that didn't exist, erased after a classified mission 5 years ago. Lance, pride wounded, refused to accept it. "Bullshit," he snarled. "Prove it in a real fight." Patterson warned him, but Lance raised his fists, circling her. Olivia's expression shifted, the blankness replaced by cold calculation. "If that's what you want," she said softly. Lance threw a wild punch, then another, his aggression overwhelming. But Olivia flowed around his attacks, her footwork subtle, her body untouchable. He roared, "Hit me!" She didn't, letting him tire, studying his patterns. Then, in a flash, she stepped inside his guard, her arms around his neck in a sleeper hold. 8 seconds later, Lance collapsed, unconscious. Her precision surgical. The yard was silent, save for his body hitting the ground. Captain Harrow stepped forward, his face unreadable. "Effective immediately, Olivia Mitchell is an honorary instructor. Respect her. Follow her orders." Olivia didn't acknowledge the promotion. She picked up her backpack, pulled her torn shirt closed, and walked away, the cadets parting before her like she was a force of nature. The camp transformed overnight. Word of Olivia's identity spread like wildfire, fueled by whispered conversations and shaky cell phone videos. By evening, everyone from cooks to commanders knew the Charity case was a Ghost Viper protégé. Lance was transferred to medical, then faced a review board. His attack on a classified operative earned him a dishonorable discharge, his family name tarnished. Madison's taunts, recorded and posted online, went viral after Olivia's reveal. Her defense contractor sponsor dropped her, their statement citing incompatible values. Her social media accounts became battlegrounds of criticism, forcing her to delete them. Derek was relegated to latrine duty, his complaints met with reminders of his behavior toward a decorated veteran. Captain Harrow underwent mandatory retraining, his dismissive attitude replaced by caution. He began asking Olivia's opinion during briefings, a first in his career. The base's culture shifted, her story becoming required reading for recruits, with protocols revised to emphasize respect. Elena Rodriguez, who'd shown Olivia kindness, was selected for advanced training, her insight earning her mentor's support. 2 days later, a nervous officer approached Olivia as she cleaned her gear. "Ma'am, someone's at the gate." She followed him, past cadets now watching with fear and fascination. At the entrance stood General Thomas Reed, tall, graying, in a tactical jacket that screamed authority. Colonel Patterson stood at attention. "Mitchell, this is General Reed," he said. Olivia's composure cracked, a flicker of relief in her eyes. "You didn't have to come," she said softly. "Yeah, I did," Reed replied, his hand on her shoulder. Patterson addressed the crowd. "This is General Thomas Reed, Olivia's husband." The revelation stunned them. Madison dropped her bottle, Derek's jaw fell, and even Elena looked shocked. Olivia and Reed drove off in her battered truck, its engine roaring with unexpected power. The fallout continued. Lance's discharge became a case study in humility. Madison's sponsor faced PR challenges, and the base became a pilgrimage site for those who'd heard the story. Visitors asked to see the yard where Olivia fought, the mess hall where she endured, the barracks where she prepared. Her photo, found under a bunk, became a talisman, passed among recruits as a reminder of hidden strength. Months later, the base still felt Olivia's impact. New recruits studied her story, learning not to judge by appearances. Elena thrived in advanced training, carrying Olivia's lesson forward. Others, like Madison and Derek, faced lasting consequences, their arrogance a cautionary tale. Olivia and Reed vanished into classified work, rumors placing them in Montana or overseas. Occasionally, a quiet woman appeared at training facilities worldwide, offering corrections before disappearing. General Reed, when asked, smiled enigmatically, his demeanor suggesting peace after years of tension. The story spread online. Hashtags like "Don't Judge the Book" trending as people discussed hidden potential and quiet strength. The cadets who witnessed Olivia's transformation carried her lesson, some becoming leaders who looked deeper, others haunted by their mistakes. In a secure facility, an encrypted call reached Olivia. "Code Phoenix," the voice said, referencing Ghost Viper's final mission. Her past was resurfacing, pulling her back to a world of shadows. As she prepared, she reflected on the cadets. hoping they'd learn to see strength in the unassuming. The most dangerous battles, she knew, were fought by those no one expected. Olivia Mitchell, once mocked, was exactly who the world needed, hidden until the moment her lethal grace was required.